In this video, I want to talk a little bit more about a direct philosophy of perception, and in particular, I want to talk about how meaning and knowledge tend to come in the world together and simultaneously, and really form an epistemology related to knowledge regarding meaning. And that meaning is predicated on this difference between empirical, perceptual, as well as elements of cognitive meaning that are important for discerning various categories of knowledge and information, as well as separate it from meaning and meaning process that is raw and organic and primary to forming knowledge and our understanding of the world. And we tend to establish meaning that is direct through perceptions. It's distinct from some of this, what I like to call more of a anthropic type of meaning that pertains to us as humans and regards the human conditions and the conditions, say, for civilization to exist on the earth, and requires this concept primarily of selfhood rather than a meaning that's based largely in perception and our sense of the surroundings, the sense of the self in the surroundings. And that can pertain to even animals or plant life in what's called the Umwelt. And the Umwelt relates to a direct perception of the self within the surroundings, or a sense of the surroundings. And it contains all aspects of our senses, our direct sense experiences, and operates at that precept level that's exchanging information between the self and the environment, rather than formulating ideas or thought processes internal to the self, involved in this self-subjectivity and this process that's primarily psychological in nature regarding the self. And the Umwelt is a direct form of interpolating information from the environment, but in that interpolation, when it is processed through the precept, is primarily meaning-based rather than information-based. The information processes tend to be non-conscious, they're unconscious processes, and they tend to render what happens in relation to cause and effect relationships and concrete depictions of reality rather than the meaning that we convey and actually put together these depictions of reality. What we use to represent reality is largely what's meaning-based rather than information-based. Information tends to refer to these cause and effect relationships and can help to refer to the identity of objects within a domain-specific degree. And that's referring to when we're connecting properties that define a characteristic of something as something, or what's called a reciprocal relation that can be turned into a statement about information, or a characteristic that describes something as it is. So those tend to pertain more to information, while the actual representation or direct experience of it is meaning-based. And so pretty much everything that we do is meaning-based. But just because something is meaning-based doesn't necessarily mean that there's no coherent set of information that allow us to render information as it is rather than outside that meaning system. So meaning tends to be broad and open to interpretation because it's largely perceptual, but we can move into the cognitive mode in which we can render meaning that is very, very complex and broad and open interpretation into these smaller categories, these reciprocally related categories that we can take, say, two properties that are the same across categorizing, say, like an apple. Maybe it could be that apples have a core with seeds and a stem, and they tend to form almost this spade-like shape. That those can be reciprocal properties, but it's probably closer to the core that we see a common identity for the apple, that it can help us to establish clear sets of information rather than the spade-like shape, which is open to a broader set of interpretations, and that is more open to these meaning processes, various meaning processes that combine these component bits of information and allow us to establish knowledge through a meaning epistemology. A meaning epistemology that is predicated on the basis of meaning. We wouldn't have the information or the knowledge without that perception or without meaning inherent to it, but information being rendered to a higher degree of exactness can sometimes be, I think, misconveyed as what is most important to factual information or to knowledge. And information is often, when it comes into the objective context, highly reliant on getting to that information and getting to it in a pure form, but it's important to always understand the context and the meaning context in which information is flowing and the purposes for that to really understand the nature of a particular claim, to understand its relevance within a situated context. So that's all I wanted to say for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Bye.